Stripes, just quickly, the Central Coast Mariners have beaten Western Sydney 1-0 after 6 minutes of stoppage time, and the Melbourne Renegades have got the Stars 5 for 95 off 15 overs. So the Stars still a chance to work their way up to, say, a 140 or thereabouts, but the Renegades are going along pretty nicely. O'Brien, Sheridan, Pattinson, Samuels and Murley all with a wicket apiece, so sharing the load quite comfortably amongst their lot. Darren Parkin is here. Cameron Luke is with me in the studio, but we do have a rotating panel as we've had on the Betstars and Stripes over the journey. Alaskander, a well-earned break. Dr. Turf would disagree with the well-earned part, but Dr. Turf is away himself for a couple of weeks, and Ed Wyatt been a very, very busy man taking the night off as well. But we do have a very special guest on the program. I speak, of course, of Steve Salisbury. Steve, nice to have you back on the airways on 1116 SEN.
Oh, thank you. When you said you had a special guest and I heard Salisbury Hill, I thought, my God, you've got Peter Gabriel. But no, it's just me. So you guys have got bottom of the barrel tonight, but it's good to be here. It really is.
Hey, what have you been up to, mate?
I'm living
I know you're living over there. What are you doing over there? Because you should be here.
I should be here, yeah. I'm over there just doing, I got 3 kids, so I'm a dad, and I'm doing a bit of work here and there. Doing some sales. I'm living, man. I'm a schmo. I'm working.
Looking nice and close, waiting for that Giants or 49ers ultimate championship.
Yeah, what we need in San Francisco is the Niners to win it, which will make San Francisco, which I've said forever is the city of champions. It would actually make them truly the city of champions. To have the Giants win the World Series, which I my entire life never thought I'd see, and it happened. Now it's happened not once but twice. And the Niners are. Well, obviously we're going to get into that tonight, but the Niners. They're positioned pretty well. I don't know, after watching them the last 4 or 5 weeks, which team we're going to see. But I do know if we see them at their best, they will not only go to, but they'll win the Super Bowl. But it's whether or not they can actually get their best team on the field at the same time with the right scheme. And I don't know. You know what's funny about the playoffs right now is that this is a year where you could argue that probably 6 teams have a legit shot to win the whole thing. And I guarantee you Packer fans think they have a shot to do it. Niner fans think they do. People in Atlanta believe their team has a chance. Seattle sure as hell has a chance of doing it the way they've been playing. There are probably some myopics in Washington that think the Redskins have a chance. They don't, but there are people who do. And then, we're forgetting about the AFC. You've got Baltimore, who now Ray Lewis is on his way out. You've got Houston, who looked good for the first part of the season. They've been crappy of late, but they won today. And then you've got New England, who they're there every other year, and then you got the Denver Broncos. So it's so even now. It really is. In years past, you could see the winner coming a mile away. But the last couple of years, you've had a team that got hot at the end. Last year, the Giants. The year before, the Pack.
Hey, Ray Lewis obviously made his announcement, and it's a well-timed announcement because you try and use that emotional edge to try and get your team all the way to the Super Bowl and beyond. What's the feeling been around the US? Do you think it's going to be enough to be able to give them that edge, or do you think – because there are some sportscasters in the US who don't think he might retire. He might go on again. No,
he's the one guy, and I may not the only guy, but I understand how people would be skeptical because it's so often now that an athlete retires, he gets away from the limelight, and he goes, man, this sucks.
Yeah, I got no money. I got to get back.
Well, that's part of it, too. 80% of the guys are broke within 2 years of retirement, which is a pretty startling fact. I actually think that he's got enough things going on in his life that he'll walk away. I think it's a great rallying cry for the Ravens because Baltimore, they've got 2 things going for them this weekend. The city of Baltimore lost the Colts in 1984. And there's no love lost between the city of Baltimore and the Colts. You could ask Ed White about that because he was there. Yeah. His old man, to this day, cannot watch the NFL. I don't know if to this day, but 4 or 5 years ago we had this conversation. His old man would not watch the NFL because he was so torn up by this Colts leaving. So the Baltimore people are going to be fired up that the Colts are back in there. Their team, at the beginning of the season, I picked the Niners and the Ravens to play in the Super Bowl. So the Ravens, I felt, had a legitimate shot. Last year, they were a missed field goal away from going to the Super Bowl. They've got their emotional and their on-the-field leader announcing his retirement. So that place is going to be fired up. And as much as I love Andrew Luck, to me, he's the rookie of the year, in my opinion. People will dispute that, but I just think when you look at what he's had to do and all the stuff he's had to do, he has carried the very worst team. Last year, that team won 2 games. And by himself, he's doing stuff that 5-10-year veterans do. And so they've asked him to do a lot. He's done it unbelievably well, and he's got his team in the playoffs. As much as I love him, I think the Ravens win that game quite easily. But Ray is he's great. He's phenomenal, and he impacted virtually every game he was in. And even off the field, he's done some. He's a great motivational speaker. Scares the crap out of me, though. He's a very scary man. But
Now, Betstars and Stripes, of course, are brought to you by Betstar. Betstar offer best of the best on all Saturday and selected public holiday metro meets half an hour prior to the jump. Select it for the best of the totes or top fluck, whichever happens to be higher. 5 for 113 halfway through the 17th over. You mentioned, obviously, San Francisco and the City of Champions. Was it Boston? I'm trying to think how many years ago we're going back now, where they had, obviously, the Patriots. They had the Celtics, you had the Red Sox, and you had, was it the Boston Bruins as well? I think, were they all champions at the same time?
They were,
or close to?
I think
certainly up and around the mark.
I think two of them did. I think the Red Sox.
Yeah.
And we're going back a few years. I think the Red Sox and the Celtics won it.
Yeah.
I think the Pats lost. I think they lost the game to the Giants, that first Super Bowl. And I think the Bruins lost to, I don't recall who they played, but I think they lost in a Stanley Cup. So, yeah. That city has had a run like none other, and those are some of the most bitter parochial fans in all of America. So they've had a great run. That run, as soon as their quarterback steps away, they're going to fall back to the pack.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. There's going to be a big one. Well, next week when Houston go to town. But I want to talk firstly about the Packers and the Vikings, because the Packers, you touched on them before. 2 years ago, Super Bowl champions, came from nowhere, won every game on the road, and won the Super Bowl.
Yes, they
last
did.
year in the regular season were what many people believe. Before probably last 2 or 3 games, they lost their way with injuries and their momentum was stalled and their playoffs was fairly disappointing. This Packer team that won today against Vikings, and we'll talk about their quarterback issues in a moment, but the Packer team at the moment reminds me of that team from 2 years ago that did what many people was very improbable.
Really? I don't see that, but I've heard other people say that, so you're not alone. I look at that team and I see the other thing I'll say about this is I see flaws in that team, but I see flaws in every team. I don't think they run the ball particularly well. I still think there are issues defensively for those guys. They play the Niners next weekend in San Francisco. First game of the year, the Niners put the wood to them. Now they've improved since then. They have. They got jobbed like no other team got jobbed by the replacement officials. That game, I think it was game 3 or 4, whatever it was, where they went to Seattle and they ruled, and it was just a horrific call, and you knew that was going to impact the playoffs in some way. As a matter of fact, it did. Now you could say that game right there lost them home field advantage, which in my opinion, loses them a chance to go to the Super Bowl.
It also got the real refs back.
Yes, so it was good. So we thank the bad refs for that, but. The Packer team, the teams are also evenly matched, I feel. There's not that much of it. I think the 49ers are the most talented team, but that does not translate to wins. So something stupid next week, a bad turnover by Colin Kaepernick perhaps, or something on Aaron Rodgers could turn the game, and it could turn every one of these games. It's all the team you could say this virtually every year, but the team that's going to win is going to be the team that plays the most mistake-free football the next 3 or 4 games.
Heading into next weekend, how would Alex Smith be feeling?
He is. I've been close to that because it's just right down the street. Mm-hmm. He has been. He's visibly very. I mean, not distraught. I mean,
just for people at home might not know the story.
No, that's right. So, Alex Smith was a 49ers quarterback, and he was drafted in 2005. He was the first player chosen. He's had to deal with a lot of really bad coaches. He's had to deal with injuries. He's had to deal with the team throwing him under the bus. It was thought after 2010, that he was going to leave. Harbaugh came on, convinced him to stay. Harbaugh put him in the perfect scenario last season to make Harbaugh's a coach of the Niners, to make him play as well as he's ever played. He took the team to the playoffs. He not single-handedly, but he had a very big part in them beating the Saints in that first playoff game. And he damn near had him into the Super Bowl last year. So we thought, well, look, they only gave him a 1-year deal, though. The Niners did. They only gave Smith a 1-year deal, and typically a guy who does that for his team is going to get a 2, 3, 5-year deal. Yeah. So that raised some questions in my mind about whether or not they saw him as a long-term option. They, before last season, drafted this kid, Colin Kaepernick, who grew up close to me, and he was a baseball pitcher, threw the ball 95 miles an hour, so it's about 140 Ks. Got a rocket arm, And Smith was taking the team. Smith was a starter. Smith played the first 8 games of the season. The team was 6-2. I was in San Francisco for the game against the Rams. He took a bad hit. He left with a concussion. He actually, the kind of a sidebar to that is there's been this big issue in the NFL about guys with concussions and whether or not, there's lawsuits now about the long-term damage that these concussions do, and they've happened on the field. So there's a whole big to-do about this. He is a guy who followed the rules and said, look, I don't feel good. You need to take me out of this game. I've got blurry vision. So he left the game. Kaepernick finished the game. The team tied against the Rams. Kaepernick played reasonably well. He was given the start. Kaepernick was that following week because Alex Smith said, look, I just don't feel right, which is a smart thing to do. The guy's a smart guy. He's thinking long term. I go back out there, I'm going to get a concussion, and then next time I bump my kid hits me in the head, I'm going to have a concussion. So they gave the ball to Kaepernick. Kaepernick blew up the Bears, who at that time many people thought was the best team in football. So after the game, now you've got a quarterback controversy. And so Alex Smith, who did nothing wrong, lost his job while injured, which for many, many years was something that just didn't happen. You cannot lose a job through injury. In fact, you can. And he did. And now if the team doesn't win the Super Bowl, or at least get further than they did last year, in a lot of people's eyes, this move that Harbaugh has made has been a mistake. We're never going to know. But I feel bad for Alex Smith. I mean, he's making several $1 million a year. He's an NFL quarterback. He's got a great he's a bright guy. He's got a great future. But, in your own job, you're a radio job, you get sick, you have bad food, you leave, one of you two guys leaves, someone comes in and they go, thanks, guys, we don't need you anymore. I mean, that's essentially what happened to this guy, and it's really unfortunate. So he would be wishing he could get on the field, and barring injury, we're not going to see him on the field ever again in San Francisco.
And he said, the only thing I've done wrong is get concussed. And the coach, I think, for the first week said Alex Smith's still the quarterback. Yeah, and that changed pretty quickly.
He says, I've got 2 starters. The whole Harbaugh, people would ask me, what do you think about this? Because I followed this team for a long time. And my thought was, Harbaugh was so good. He came in one season and changed the culture. It's like I got no option but other than to follow what this guy says. The one thing that people forget is that he's with them every day. Yep. He sees these guys day in and day out. He knows these 2 guys better than anyone does. And so he's inside. We're all outside. As much as we like to think we're inside, we're outside. He knows. He made the call, and that's how it's going to go. So we're just going to see. If they lose next week, is it Harbaugh's fault? I don't know.
Off the SMS, both the Vikings and Bengals were horrific today. 2 awful, awful teams. Boss man Goodall wants to expand the playoff team numbers. Please, no more mediocre teams.
That's a very good call. They do. The NFL, they're talking about bringing an extra playoff team in, and that would bring it up to 14, as I believe what the number is that they're talking about. I think the way they have it now is great. When I was growing up, there were only 8 teams in the playoffs. Now there are 12. And they added a second wild card team, and now they've added a third. I think it's fine. I don't think you need any more. The problem for the Vikings, though, and you brought this up earlier, Cam, their quarterback was not in. They've got this guy, Christian Ponder, he's been hit or miss this year, but he had a bad elbow, so he had to sit out. So this guy, Joe Webb, who hadn't played at all, came in. And here's the deal. Football is a game. The NFL is really a game of matchups. Yep. And so Adrian Peterson, who's my choice for MVP, the running back for the Vikings, if you're the back, well, are they going to give it to Joe Webb to beat us? Damn well they're going to give the stupid ball to Adrian Peterson. He still ran for 99 yards, didn't score a touchdown. But, no, the Vikings were going in. I didn't think they were going to win. At their best, I didn't think they were going to beat Green Bay in Lambeau. And then to lose their quarterback was kind of an unfair shot. But, that was a problem there. And in Cincinnati, you got to credit the Texans. The Texans beat the Cincinnati, was in 1913.
1913.
They did a nice job doing that today. And what they did is they gave the ball to Arian Foster, and they held the ball for twice as much time as the Bengals did. And there weren't a lot of turnovers. There were only 2 turnovers in that game. But what the defense handled Cincinnati, who has a pretty good offense, and they gave the ball to Arian Foster. And if that's the thing about running. Running backs they say it's a passing league. Yet the way that you win